and welcome to Cupcake Addiction's Peppa Pig Cupcake tutorial, where I'll be showing you how to make not one but 4 gorgeous little Peppa Pig cupcakes, really heavily requested by you guys. Tools and equipment that we will be using today, and there are a lot of them for these 4 cupcakes. I've got 6 Ziploc bags. I've pre-frosted 4 cupcakes. Now I've baked them in the corresponding coloured patty pans or cupcake cases, and I've gone with green, red, blue and pink, and I've frosted them in our flat top frosting style. So we have a whole tutorial on how to achieve this great flat topped frosting style on your cupcakes, and I will leave a link to that in the description box below. Obviously you can change up your colours a little bit, but Peppa is red and her little brother is blue, so try and keep those 2 colours running through. And I've kept just a little bit of that leftover frosting in green and blue. We'll be using that for a little bit of our detail work. I've got a pair of scissors, I've got 2 knives, I've got about half a dozen spoons, so 4 or 5, 6 spoons. I've got some colour pastes. I've got a yellow, a pink, I think I'm using rose, and a black. I've got a few cocktail sticks or toothpicks. I've got a couple of pretzel sticks. I've got a paintbrush. I've got my Peppa Pig Printables. Now I will leave a link to these in the description box below, and I've covered those with just a little bit of grease-proof paper and sticky taped it down on the sides, and I found it was easier to cut them into strips so that you're only working with 1 strip at a time as you're doing this. Just makes it a little bit easier to get around the different sides. I've got 3 little containers, and I've got pretty well a whole packet of, these are just Nestle white chocolate melts, so just regular cooking chocolate that I've melted down. Rather than using candy melts for this, because they are quite thick to work with, I've opted to use some white chocolate, and I'm going to just show you how we'll colour it today. So I've got my 3 containers. You're going to want some dark pink, some light pink, a little bit of yellow and some white left over. So I'm going to take my chocolate and I'm just going to pour some into each of those containers. And this will be my white, so I'll use that a little bit later when we get to the part where we need white. Now I'm going to use the lemon yellow, and that's just going to little bit on a cocktail stick there. You'll notice I'm using colour pastes. Never ever use liquid colour if you're trying to colour chocolate. It will make your chocolate seize and you won't be able to recover it. You can also use powder colours or oil-based colours, but so long as you're only going for relatively pale sort of colours, I find these Wilton colour pastes to be just fine. Just a bit of I've just dipped the cocktail stick in some of that pink chocolate. Better to do the lighter colour first than to try to do them both together, just in case you find that you've added a little bit too much food colouring along the way and you end up with 2 quite dark pinks. So I just want to make sure that my first pink is quite light, and then my second pink can be quite a bit darker. Alright, so we've got our nice 3 colours there, and as I mentioned, I've still got my white sitting off to the side. So you're going to take 2 of those Ziploc bags, actually 3 of those Ziploc bags. The first one is just going to get just a little bit of white, and this is literally just going to be for the eyes and the mouth details. So you really don't need very much of that white. Open your Ziploc bag, spoon in some of that white chocolate. Push it all the way down to the corner of your bag before sealing it up. And we're just going to pipe on. So we're piping these on in chocolate today. I'm just going to cut just a very, very fine little corner of my Ziploc bag. Nice and fine, just to fashion that into a little bit of a piping bag for us. I'm piping these in chocolate. If you would like to use royal icing or cookie icing, you certainly could. So I'm just dolloping in the eyes. Pop in their little smiles there. I'm going to pop those ones in the fridge just for a couple of minutes to let that first colour set. Alright, we're back from the fridge with Peppa and her little brother George. We're going to take our second Ziploc bag for the day, and we're just going to put some of our dark pink into that Ziploc bag. So you can sort of see where we're going with this. We're going to do our dark pink outline. We're also going to do around George's mouth, and we're going to do Peppa's mouth, and we'll do their nostrils and their nice little cheeks with this dark pink colour. And I'm just going to cut off once again just a really nice fine piping tip so that we've got a nice fine line coming out of there. And I find when I pipe, I find it easiest to start on the paper, lift the bag up as I follow the line, and and then drop it down almost at the end. So I'm not even really touching the work that I'm doing. I'm actually sort of just touching at the start and touching at the end. First of all, we want to outline around the eyes, which are now nice and set, around the mouths and the cheeks. And we want to start going around, I guess, the outsides of the head now. So I'm going to start with the snouts. Go around that snout all the way around, and then I'm going to go under the snout, start going around the chin. Doing our ears, and two little nose holes. Alright, so there you've got your two outlines of both Peppa and George. Now, they'll be starting to set, but I would give them just a couple of minutes to completely set. We can start preparing our Ziploc bag. We can make our little tree detail. So we've got our green frosting and we've got our blue frosting, and I'm going to take my green frosted cupcake here. My green frosted cupcake, I'm going to use a spoon, and I want to put some green frosting into one of those Ziploc bags, and my blue frosting into another one. So I'm going to take one of my knives here, and I just want to scoop out a little bit, which is going to be for, I guess, our little pond or our little lake. So I'm just going to use the back of my knife, and I'm just going to just sweep out a corner of it, really. Just like that. Nothing too fancy, it doesn't have to be too terribly neat. Taking your blue frosting. So I've snipped quite a big corner off because we're not doing any fine detail work with this. It's just really just so that we can put the frosting in where we want it. And I'm going to frosting fill nice and high so it's the same height as the rest of our green frosting in that little kind of pond hole, I suppose. Now you want to take your knife and you want to use the back of the knife. We're just going to smooth that pond down. Then I'm just going to wipe it off on just a towel, and on the side we're just going to run that knife around the side, stopping when you get to the edge and cleaning the knife, come back again from that way. So there you've got your little pond looking detail, and we can cut just a tiny little bit of this bag. So you want this to be just a little corner, and there's no exact measurement for this, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do a little bush. So just here I'm just going to, you can see I've got my frosting coming out the end there, I'm just going to kind of just pile it up. I'm sort of shaking my hand around. You can see there it's just piling up like a bit of a squiggle. And then taking one of my pretzel sticks, I'm going to just put some frosting on it. So I won't do that over Peppa because I don't want them to drop on her head, but I'm just going to attach that frosting, and once again just squiggling. I'm going to start off with a nice small, not too bushy top, all the way up to the top there, and then I'm just going to come out and do another bit of a layer sort of in the middle. Don't be tempted to put too much of this frosting on, you don't want it to fall off, but I found this was about the right amount and it gives us that effect of that nice little tree. Fill in any gaps that you've got there. Now I like to use my other pretzel stick or a lollipop stick or something like that just to poke a bit of a guide hole so that my tree is going to go in really easily. And you can just pop your tree in. We'll add our little flowers to the tree and the bush very shortly. So we want to keep going with our piping. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to go and pop my chocolate in the microwave for about 30 or 40 seconds. I want to make sure that it's as fluid as it can possibly be. Alright, so that's just come out of the microwave. You can see there it's beautiful, thin and lovely to work with. So we're going to take another Ziploc bag and pour in that pink chocolate. For this part, I would actually recommend probably doing them one or two at a time rather than trying to put all of your chocolate in the bag and filling them all in. I would recommend doing one or two at a time, and that way you can kind of decide if you need to microwave that chocolate anymore in between. So I'm just going to snip off another nice little corner And this one doesn't have to be particularly fine. So we're going to start with that George, who was right down here, our very first one, and we're going to fill him in. So just filling in, and you do want to squeeze a generous amount in there, not so much that it's going to go over the edges, but you want to make sure, at the moment I'm not squeezing, I'm just using the end of my bag just to push that chocolate down to make sure that it's getting into all of the corners. And you can go over top of your other work, that's fine, but try not to touch your other work because you will actually start moving the mouth and the eyes around. If you want to, in between, it's a good idea to just grab your board, give it a couple of little taps, and that's just going to force any of that pink chocolate that hasn't gone into any of his little cracks deep down into the cracks. So you should have something that looks like this. Not yet in line to impress any Peppa Pig fan. We're going to pop those off into the fridge and they're going to be allowed to completely set. It's only going to take about 5 or so minutes, and when we come back we'll be decorating our other cupcakes. Alright, so we're going to take our pink frosted cupcake. Now I did mention I've done the flat top frosting as well, so this one here with the tree on it is completely flat. However, my other three, my blue, my pink and my red, I actually just shaved a little bit off. So you can see there it goes down on a little bit of an angle. I'll show you how I've done that. I just flat top iced it as per our flat top tutorial, and then literally just shaved a bit of a scoop up. And this is just going to be so that when you look at those cupcakes from front on, you can still see the Peppa, George and other details on them. And they're not, I guess they're not too flat, so you don't need to be looking at them from up on top of the cupcake to actually see our gorgeous decorations. So I'll pop those two to the side. We're going to take the yellow candy melt and our last Ziploc bag, and we're going to spoon in a yellow candy melt, or a yellow chocolate I should say. So used to working with candy melts. Now as I mentioned, the reason that I decided on chocolate, it's just more fluid to work with. So I don't normally use chocolate for colours like red, green and black. That's always a candy melt job because you've just got to add too much colouring to them. Just snipping off a nice little corner, doesn't have to be too fine for this one. So for your son, no exact measurements here. We are just going to swirl on a nice big round circle. A little bit of a blockage in my bag, so I'm just going to take it off my work just to release it there. And it's a little chunk of chocolate that I've got in there, so beautiful. Keep going, I want my circle to be a little bit bigger. These ones are fantastic if you ruin any of your Peppa Pigs along the way, or if you just can't be bothered making so many of them, because they are time consuming. They're not hard, but they're definitely time consuming. So just, I'm not even squeezing now, I'm just using that bag just to fan out any edges that I don't think are particularly even. And then I'm just going to wipe off the tip of my bag, so I'm working with a nice clean tip and just pipe some little lines. Quite spaced apart for the sun on Peppa Pig, but it's a really, really easy little sun. If you love this tutorial, make sure that you head on over to our channel MyCupcakeAddiction and hit the subscribe button. We've got lots of tutorials over there to keep you busy on everything cake and cake pop decorating. Now you want to take your yellow chocolate, and I'm just going to add just some little flowers. When I was looking at the different Peppa Pig shows and the different Peppa Pig things on the internet, most of the flowers seem to be yellow. So I just thought I'd add just a few little, just tiny yellow dots into those bushes and onto that tree, and that's just going to give them a little bit of colour. So I'm just putting some nice little yellow sort of flowers into any of those grooves that I like. And that's that one there finished. You can see you've got your little tree and your little bush now covered in a nice spray of flowers. Now it's time to go and see if our Peppa Pigs are ready. Alrighty, so we're back from the fridge and our little Peppas and Georges have all set. Now they should move quite freely off that greaseproof paper, but if they don't, so if you just go to touch them, and you can see there mine are just going to slide around, that's fine. Oh, this one not so much. Any of them that aren't going to move, just take a nice flat knife and just, there we go, push it underneath. They should really come off of their own accord. They are quite quite non-stick, I guess, to that greaseproof paper. So to have a look and see how they've turned out, we'll might take away the templates so you guys can see them properly without their little counterparts behind. Now I will add, look, not all of these are going to come out absolutely perfectly. It's a really, really good way to do it without fondant, but you are at the mercy of the chocolate and the way that the chocolate dries. So you can see there is absolutely no doubt about what they are. If you do have, let me find a good example. Say this one here. You can see just up here around the cheeks, there's a couple of little spots where that chocolate just hasn't gone in. Do not worry, these are not lost. Take your pink candy melt, or your pink white chocolate, your pink chocolate, and you just want to spread a little bit of that over, use your finger, wipe it off. Look at that, crisis averted. So it'll just fill in those little gaps. So any little gaps you have, this is just your way to neaten them up. Just over goes a little bit of that pink chocolate and then wipe it off. All right, now to finish those ones off, you're going to take your either black colour paste, your other options here are an edible marker, or you can also use some black candy melt that you've melted down and just put a little dollop in each of the eyeballs. I will also mention, I don't have any sitting here right with me, but a couple of drops of alcohol, a clear alcohol, either vodka or rose spirit, just a drop or two in with your black colour paste is going to help it set a lot faster. It's not really going to matter if you don't have alcohol, if you don't mix it with alcohol, just when you're placing Peppa and George, stick it down, try to avoid touching the blacks of the eyes because they will take quite a while to set with just straight colour paste, and the alcohol will actually help them to set a little bit better. So for Peppa, I'm just going to take my paintbrush and I'm just going to paint some little black eyes and bring her to life, and then we'll do the same with George. Alright, so that's our Peppa and George toppers completely finished, and it's going to be as simple as choosing your best ones. And look, I would definitely do a few more than you think you're going to need, because there's always going to be one or two that you look at and you go, I'm really not happy with that. To position them on, you're just going to take them where you've swiped off that sort of gradient. I'm just going to position him down, and I'm just going to push him a little bit more on the bottom than I do on the top, so he's almost sort of standing up a little bit. And there you have your 4 absolutely gorgeous Peppa Pig and George Pig cupcakes, ready to go for your next kids party or the event for the Peppa Pig lover in your family.